Fiji, what comes to mind? Perhaps it's cannibals, headhunters, even Captain Bligh. Of course, more likely today it's romance, snorkeling, or even surfing why people head to Fiji. But I didn't go for any of those reasons. Though I did enjoy the coconut palms, the ocean, the beautiful rainbows, I went to Fiji to see iguanas, specifically the crested iguana found on the sanctuary at Yandua Tamba. It took me about 2 years to get permission from the Fiji National Trust before I was allowed to go to this uninhabited island. And likely, most people won't have that option. But there is another option to see the iguanas, Kula Eco Park. The cool thing about this park is not only do you get to see the species, but if you're fortunate, you may also have an opportunity to hold a crested iguana. You can wander around the park and see other animals as well, but of course, my interest was primarily the iguanas. In addition to the crested iguana, you'll also get to see the other species. This is a banded iguana, which there are 3 different species currently recognized. The most recently described just in 2017. The males have the white stripes, and the females are solid green. The park is successful in breeding iguanas, though they did have a surplus of males, which are territorial, that are kept individually in all these cages. But I was anxious to get on with my trip. The second leg of my trip would include a 4-hour ferry ride to the second largest island in Fiji. On this island, we would meet with government officials and provide them with kava roots, which we had purchased in town, and which we had also purchased to provide the chief when we arrived in Yandua. Those that got sick on the ferry had a beautiful rainbow upon our arrival, and then we loaded into a taxi. These are the kava roots that we presented to officials both on that island and then on Yandua when we arrived. Our crew consisted of me and members from the Fiji National Trust. Before I could meet with the chief, I needed to wear this skirt. The Kava Ceremony with the chief consisted of grinding up the pepper roots into to make a drink that was shared with everyone as they sat on the floor. Not very comfortable for me. Most of the buildings were quite primitive, yet the school pictured here was very nice, as was the ranger shack for the ranger that patrolled Yandua Tamba. This was the water supply. You can see there's a variety of different buildings, and the people that live in this village fish for that sea slug that's then sold to different foreign nationals. This is the building where we stayed, enjoyed dinner, again sitting on the ground. Due to rough seas, we spent the night there before heading over to Yandua Tamba. The beach is beautiful, not a footprint in sight, unless of course you count sea turtles. Obviously one had nested the night before. Just beautiful to be the first prince actually on the island. This was the only man-made structure until we put up tents where we stayed. The first iguana was up in that canopy. Do you see it? Maybe now. Very difficult to spot. The park ranger took me for a quick little trip around the island to spot iguanas, which quickly turned black and opened their mouths, unlike the bright green from the iguanas in the eco park. But they still were calm and allowed you to slip your hand under them and pick them out without biting or running away. As sun set, we went out night hunting, but rain cut that short. The next morning, we explored along the beach. I found iguanas. The National Trust members went to look for damage caused by a ship that landed on the island. In addition to iguanas, I also found a number of different skinks. Just spectacular to see the different lizards and wildlife. I think my favorite skink was probably the green tree skink. When you got thirsty, fortunately a trust member was there to take their machete and cut open a pineapple, which gave me something to drink. I brought my snorkel equipment, so while members of the trust were doing their surveys and their work, I checked out the starfish, coral, moray eels, and other things that were to be seen in the ocean. Quite spectacular, and a nice rest from climbing the mountain. But I soon decided it was time to go look for more iguanas. Just couldn't get enough of them. Both males and females of the crested iguana have the white bands, but they can easily be sexed, as most lizard species, based on the femoral pores. Ultimately, my time on the island came to an end, and I'd seen my last crested iguana in the wild. The group got together for one last group picture, and then I headed back, and I, of course, had to stop at the eco park and see the banded iguanas as well as the crested iguanas there, and think about my book and how I could improve it. Think about the ocean, the seashells, but most of all, the iguanas that I would miss. While I didn't go to Fiji for romance, I did fall in love with a lizard, an island, a people. Wonderful experience, one that I'll never forget. And of course I saved some souvenirs like the $5 bill and commemorated my time with an article. So I hope you enjoyed the video.